people of New York City to do everything that they can to cooperate, not to be frightened, to go about their lives as normal. Everything is safe right now in the city, and the people who are doing the relief effort need all the help they can get. And then, Governor, thank you very much for your assistance and your help and your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, for your leadership through this crisis. This is a vicious attack upon New York. It's an attack upon America. It's an attack upon the whole concept of freedom and our way of life. And we cannot let these attacks succeed. The first step has to be to make sure we do everything in our power to protect the people and to save the lives of those whose lives are still at risk and to help those who have been injured. And I want to commend the Mayor, and I want to thank my colleagues from Connecticut, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and the federal government have all offered and made ready support to help us deal with this ongoing crisis. The people of New York are not only the freest and most diverse people in the world, we're also, I believe, the most capable of rising to meet the challenges of this type of attack. And right now, we want New Yorkers to remain calm, to go about their business, to appreciate the fact that everything to provide for their safety is being done, to appreciate that everything that can be done to provide for the health and the needs of the people who are still at risk is being done, and that we will continue to work to make sure that we get through this as strongly and quickly as possible. I want to thank the federal administration. Secretary Thompson has been on the phone with me a number of times, as well as the President, for what they are offering and prepared to do. And we're just confident that, well, this is a horrible attack, and one that is despicable and really unthinkable in its magnitude. We will get through this, and we will continue to have a great and free country, state, and society.
Do we know the number of casualties at this point, sir?
I don't think we really want to speculate about that. The number of casualties will be more than any of us can bear ultimately, and I don't think we want to speculate on the number of casualties. The effort now has to be to save as many people as possible. And I don't think we will know the answer to that until sometime tomorrow or the next day.
Were there large numbers of firefighters?
There are a large number of firefighters and police officers who are in harm's way.
This is Talksport, and that was our colleagues at Fox just bringing you the very latest reaction from the civic leaders of New York City. As they were saying, the fire officers and police officers who were there trying to help with the first wave after the two planes hit the Twin Towers. Then, just over an hour later, as they're still trying to evacuate people, they're still getting screaming people out, injured people lying there, and then the towers collapse into rubble. They just disappeared. The landscape, the skyscape of Manhattan, one of the most famous sights in the whole world, has been changed forever. 266 people were on the 4 planes that have crashed as well. And one of the most the gruesome, I guess, one of the things of the modern world is that we saw it all live on TV, because when the first news broke of the first plane hitting one of the Twin Towers, obviously all the TV stations, all the news channels around the world start flashing up pictures, and live as they're talking about that, wondering what's happened, the second plane hits it as well.
And we saw the plane coming, John. You know, you saw the plane behind the Twin Towers from the angle of the monitor that I was watching, and you suddenly thought, is this a rescue plane? Is this a following plane? What is it? And then bang, it smacks in, and then a fireball encircles the second Twin Tower, and all of a sudden you know you can't have 2 accidents like that in the same day. And that was the first indication that what was going on here was deliberate, and we were talking suicide pilot bombers.
And what we've seen all day since then at the sights, the awful sight of people running out covered. They're grey because they're covered in rubble. You can't even see the blood on them because there is so much rubble, so much dirt and dust on them.
Even now we have retrospective pictures on our monitors here of people literally throwing themselves from the top of the World Trade Center buildings of the 2 towers. They had 2 choices: one, to stay in the building and be burnt to death, or secondly, to try and get out. I don't know what they thought they were doing. We can see now, John, a pathetic gesture, but really, what do you do when you're stuck and you're cornered like that? There's a man waving a towel from a window, indicating he wants to be rescued. Who's going to rescue him at 2,000 feet when the building is on fire? Inevitably, he will have perished. As we look to our right, you can actually see people falling from the building. They're several thousand feet up in the air, no chance of survival. But what choice did they have? You can see the flames licking at the windows behind them as they sit on the ledges there, clinging literally by their fingertips to life.
as Giuliani, the mayor, was saying, more deaths that we can bear, and gruesome deaths as well. The thought of how some of those people died really does turn your stomach. Let's hear now from one of the first firefighters on the scene at the World Trade Center.
I saw people originally coming out the window, and I was, at that time, I was quite upset about it, that I thought we should get in there. But then the explosion on the South World Trade happened, and I said, this is something we have to do. We have to back out. We backed out over here, and even then, that's when I was caught again in the second explosion.
Yeah, I went up to the elevator, the 24th floor. As soon as we get up there, the elevator get out. I got power. We lost power in the elevator. Thank God we kept one of the truck guys there, and he forced the door, and then we worked our way down the stairs. As we came down the stairs, we were just dragging people along with us, and then when we came outside, it just blew, the tower blew, and I found the mask on the floor as I was crawling.
That's one of the first firefighters who arrived on the scene. And, of course, lots of firefighters and police and ambulance people lost their lives today. The death toll, a very early estimate of around 10,000 people. Something of a debate going on in the United States over where the president is going to end his day. The Secret Service wants him to go to the NORAD facility, which is a safe and secure place up in the mountains against any potential attack, of course, from the people that carried out the original atrocities. His political advisors, so that could make him look weak and as if he is running away and should stay and be the captain on the ship in Washington.
Well, this is a very difficult decision, because what the American Secret Service and the security authorities are saying here is we cannot guarantee that there may not yet be another attack on Washington, and if there's another attack on Washington, another hijacked plane may be hidden somewhere. We still don't know about the fifth plane that went missing, John. Nobody knows where that is, or we haven't been told where it is, or whether it's been shot down. Now, if the security forces still believe there's still an aircraft capable of making another attack on Washington, that's going to be the White House, it would be extremely foolish to have the president residing in the White House tonight. We've heard that the West Wing's been closed down. The West Wing is the political wing of the White House. The East Wing is where the affairs of the First Lady and that sort of thing go on. Hillary Clinton, incidentally, had all her facilities moved into the West Wing because she saw herself as an important First Lady. So they know exactly what to target. If they get hold of a plane and they head towards Washington, it'll be the White House. The other side of the coin, of course, is the credibility of the president. Does he look strong in the face of the world and his own people? Difficult decision, and not one that I'd like to call.
Amazing situation that the President of the United States isn't 100% safe within his own country. When you think of how vulnerable that makes a country feel, I mean, they must feel so vulnerable anyway. I'm sure the people of Israel do, and I wonder whether some people in this country also feel vulnerable, despite the measures that Tony Blair has been saying. But the fact that they are worried about where the president goes in case foreign terrorists come and murder him.
Utterly incredible, because for years we've been reading about the fact that people like Colonel Gaddafi of Libya, a rogue state, and a state which America believes sponsors terrorism, has 30 different palaces and moves around those palaces every night so that his enemies don't know where he is. I mean, the idea, as you quite rightly say, that the President of the United States of America is on the run inside the border of his own country, the most powerful in the world, it is an absolutely astonishing position for America to find itself in. Absolutely astonishing. I think if I was the president, I'd take the chance and say, no, take me back to the White House. I think I'd do that just for the morale of the country. But, you know, you've got to remember the president is so closely monitored by the Secret Service, by the security forces, and the fact that if America lose their leader tonight, what's been a catastrophic day in which they have lost so much will be, if you can believe this, even worse.
Now, the emergency number, if you've got friends or relatives in New York or Washington or Pittsburgh as well, where some people lost their lives on a flight that thankfully it looks at this stage wasn't able to be targeted towards one of the terrorist targets, the emergency number to call is 020-7008 0000. One of the other things that is obviously happening at the moment is the amount of chaos that this has caused around the world. There is not a flight going in or out or around America, except military flights, wherever this flight 175 from Boston to LA, that we don't know where it is. Presumably the military do, and that's why there are fighter planes up in the skies around Washington at the moment. But
or perhaps they don't. Perhaps they've lost it. Perhaps that plane's landed somewhere. Perhaps that plane's able to take off again. Who knows? We simply don't know. I can't quite understand why fighter jets are still patrolling the skies above Washington when there's no movement of any air traffic whatsoever. And the other thing I can't quite understand is that if they're frightened of the president going back to the White House tonight, if another rogue aircraft approached, the sensitivity of airline movements now, and the extremely sophisticated radar system the Americans have covering the whole of their country, and let's not forget they have spy networks circling around the globe all the time. Surely they'd pick up a plane that was heading towards Washington the minute it took off, wouldn't they?
Pentagon's under the highest state of emergency. It's condition Delta, as they call it, and Washington D.C. is under a state of emergency. My fear, Mike, is that I think you're right. Okay, this particular means of attack now, wherever this plane is, that's probably this wave. I just fear that there is some second wave, car bombs, anything else. You know, they went to such levels, and the organisation and the planning is mind-boggling for a group of terrorists. And I just wonder whether there is some second wave, whether Israel is likely to be attacked again. They've pulled out all the stops in their security measures. I just wonder if there is a second wave coming. Well, we don't know the answer to that one, John. All we know is that we've spoken to several experts this afternoon while you and I have both been on air, and the resounding picture that we get from the experts who know about Middle East terrorism is that, and they keep using this word, when you get a group of dedicated people who are determined to cause this sort of chaos, to cause this sort of bloody destruction, there's very little you can do about it. And if your theory's right, and there may be a second wave coming in one form or another, again, I'm afraid there's absolutely nothing that the United States at present can do about it. It's 2:48 in New York, and the city is still devastated. The mayor telling people just to get out of Lower Manhattan and pray for your friends and your relatives. And the dust is still yet to settle over New York Harbor. It's the Twin Towers we should say were because they're now gone, were at the southern end of Manhattan Island, which is not too far away from the Statue of Liberty, and everything else to the north, Central Park to the north, and the Empire State Building to the north is where they're trying to get people to flee away from now. It's going to have a huge psychological effect on the United States, because it's a country that's always prided itself on its freedom. That is their strong point. That is why they consider themselves to be the greatest nation in the world. And now you've got to start thinking, is that the end? Is the United States that you lived in, that I visited as well, is that free nation at an end? Are they going to have to start just living their lives completely differently? You get a sense of freedom, John, the moment you set foot into the United States. I've flown into airports in the United States, all around the United States: New York, Boston, Washington, Las Vegas, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Chicago. You name it, I've landed there, and you get a tremendous sense every time you pass through passport control and get out into America. Wow, this really is the land of the free. You can do anything you want in the United States of America, providing it's legal, and most things are, and you get this tremendous sense of opportunity. When you go to New York, it is a huge, glittering bauble, and it's a playground for people who want to go there and enjoy themselves and see life at its richest, and life at its most colourful, and life at its all of its extremes. And now, just a few hours after this devastating terrorist attack, which has killed up to 10,000 people, I'm beginning to wonder to myself, was it always just too good to be true? It could have been, couldn't it? Because it was always there, wasn't it? Too good to be true. They always knew that Bin Laden was there. They knew that there was the threat. See, when it was in the old days, the Cold War, when I was growing up, you knew where you stood in a sense, because you knew that there was a retaliation. Oh, you knew who the enemy were. In the old days. I mean, many people have questioned the collapse of the Berlin Wall. I've read only recently political commentators saying, and what they've been referring to really is the influx of illegal immigrants into Western Europe, saying that, you know, everybody was contained whilst there was a communist state, and an Iron Curtain had dropped across Europe. And similarly, the Cold War situation was that we knew exactly who the enemy were. We, the West, knew exactly who the enemy were. You know, it's absolutely amazing. A leader in the Sun this morning, which I read, was a leader written to say, don't worry, the world is a better place than it was when there was communism and there was capitalism. The fact that, you know, countries have been liberated and freed, and now millions of people are pouring into Western Europe, does not make us a worse place. It means that the West has been successful in what it's done. But this puts a totally different light on it. The West is an open gate, and through those open gates have walked terrorists today and inflicted the most appalling damage on the democracy of the Western world. Well, it's the worst scenario that George Bush did paint. See, that's why he was going to bring in the Star Wars defence system against rogue states, as he put it.